Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ismail Shakhtakhtinsky. I am the principal immigration attorney at IS Law Firm. Today is the next live stream, and we're going to be talking about asylum, about the steps for applying for asylum in the United States, how to maximize your chances of asylum grant in the United States, and how to prepare and what to do at your asylum interview to maximize your chances of approval. Please press like and please subscribe to our channel. And again, thank you for joining us. So I will first, as the theme of the subject or topic of this live stream states, I will tell you the 7 steps, the principal steps that you need to take to apply for asylum in the United States. Number 1, you have to be physically present in the United States to apply for asylum. One way or another, you have to be on the territory of the United States to be able to apply for asylum. There is no standard procedure for applying for asylum through U.S. consulates or embassies abroad. There are rumors and there are lots of questions whether one can apply for asylum through U.S. embassy abroad. The answer is no, they will not accept your asylum application. After describing the steps for asylum, I will answer as many questions as possible. Please post your questions in the chat section, and questions as possible. Even after this live stream is over, if you have any follow-up questions or if you have any questions, please post it in the comment section. We will try to answer questions posted in the comments as much as possible. Again, please like this video and please subscribe to our channel. So going back again, you have to be physically present in the United States. How can you enter the United States? Currently, the United States Department of Homeland Security has a procedure which is called CBP-1. CBP stands for Customs and Border Patrol. If you arrive in Mexico, you can download an app on your phone. It's called CBP-1. And in that app, you can register and set up an appointment with the border officer of the United States, where you can arrive, meet with the officer, ask for asylum. They will let you in, they'll take your information, your passport information, and they will do the background check, and they will allow you to enter the United States in the status of parole. So with that status of parole, you can enter the US and you have 1 year to apply for asylum. So this is how the easiest and quickest way now to be physically present in the United States to be able to apply for asylum. The CBP-1 procedure is currently being scrutinized by the Congress. So it doesn't mean that so having this CBP-1 procedure, which allows you to smoothly enter the US, doesn't mean that it will continue forever. They may stop that process at any time. So if you are planning to arrive in the United States, or if you have loved ones who are planning to arrive in the United States because of fear of persecution in their home country, they have to do it as soon as possible, before this process is over. So the step 2 for applying for asylum is to retain a competent, experienced, and diligent immigration lawyer. There is a separate video. I believe the previous live stream, which was last Thursday, I was talking about the criteria for choosing the best immigration lawyer for your asylum case. So you should follow those rules to choose the best immigration lawyer. Now we at IS Law Firm, and I myself, we represent clients in asylum cases, and we've been doing this for more than 16 years. I'm a Juris Doctor in the United States. I'm an immigration lawyer, and I'm a member of American Immigration Lawyers Association. So if you're considering hiring us to handle your asylum case, you can always contact us to schedule a consultation with me where we can talk about your asylum case. So as I said, number 2 is to find and retain an experienced and diligent immigration lawyer. Number three, you have thoroughly prepare your complete asylum application forms, your asylum declaration in support, evidence in support, and country conditions report. Do not submit just the asylum application to get the process running so you can qualify early for work authorization. I know it is a priority for many of you to be able to start working in the United States, but do not listen to that advice to just file the asylum application form without any evidence or without thoroughly prepared declaration. Because if you do so, that will significantly diminish the chances of you getting asylum approval. The asylum officer will be skeptical about the basis for your asylum if you simply file the application or if you just file a declaration which is brief without any specific information, without any specific dates and so on. So make sure you work with a diligent immigration lawyer to prepare the complete application before you file it. You can still supplement it down the road if you have new information or updated information, but make sure you submit the complete application. You will hear advice from unqualified lawyers or non-licensed individuals or even friends and relatives who seemingly trying to help you, but their advice is damaging to your case. So make sure you work with a diligent lawyer and prepare and file your complete application. Number four, you have to know that you have to file your asylum application within 1 year of presence in the United States. So once you enter the United States, you have 1 year to file your asylum application. And that's a very strict rule. There are exceptions to this rule. For example, if you have been present here in lawful status, and for example, as a student, and then your student status expires or you ended your school program or PT and you're now out of status, you do have a chance falling under this exception of changed circumstances. Or if you've been in the United States for quite some time and the basis for your asylum claim arose while you were in the United States. So there are these circumstances and some other limited circumstances where you can be exempt from the 1 year deadline rule, but generally you have to file your asylum application within 1 year. And preferably, you should file your asylum application as soon as possible. There is another wrong advice, which you will hear from unqualified lawyers or somebody who's not licensed attorney or friends and relatives who don't know. Maybe they're trying to help, but they may be damaging your case. That wrong advice you're going to hear is that don't file it within the time you are allowed to stay in the US. Meaning, for example, if you entered as a visitor, some wrong advice is that wait until your status expires or briefly before that to file your asylum application. That's wrong advice. They'll tell you that if you file earlier, you're not going to have a chance of immigration judge reviewing your case. That's also wrong advice. If you file during your status, that's the way you do it. And if you file it as early as possible since the entry into the United States, that increases your chances of getting asylum. Because think about it this way, just logically, if it's a human factor, if the asylum officer sees that you entered the US, you've tried to do things or maybe find an employer or change status or do something and it didn't work out, and then you decide, okay, let me apply for asylum, that seems like as a last resort, you just applied for asylum for the sake of being able to remain here and work here, versus you entered the US, you had a lawful status, but you applied for asylum immediately as soon as possible. And by immediately, again, I don't mean to file incomplete application. I mean start working on it immediately so you can file it as soon as possible. In that case, the officer will sympathize, and it looks more likely that you came to the US not for the purposes of finding a job or economic benefits, but because you came here because you had a fear of persecution in your home country from which you were fleeing. And that's why you applied for asylum as soon as possible within the time of after your brief time after your entry. Number five, once you file for your asylum application, keep in touch with your lawyer. Your lawyer should receive all the notices, keep you informed, and notify you of the biometrics appointment. If there are reasons to expedite your asylum interview, then your lawyer can do that. And the lawyer would file your employment authorization document. If your case is defensive, if you have an immigration court hearing, the lawyer should obviously enter his or her appearance in your immigration court and keep you informed about the court dates and so on, and also navigate through the process to make sure that you don't lose your chance of getting your employment authorization expeditiously. That also includes deciding whether to file change of venue, which court your case should be in, and so on and so forth. So number five is keeping in touch with your immigration lawyer. Just filing the application doesn't do the job. Keeping in touch with your lawyer and being represented throughout the process is very important for your chances of getting asylum in the United States. Number six, once your interview is scheduled, or if your case is in immigration court, before your individual hearing, you have to work with your lawyer to prepare thoroughly for your interview or immigration court hearings. What it means, what it includes, is going through the instructions with your attorney on how to answer the questions, how to behave yourself, how to react to these type of questions by the Department of Homeland Security or by the officer or from the immigration judge, and what to do and what not to do at your immigration interview or immigration court hearing. This is very important. I cannot stress enough. Your immigration interview and your immigration court hearing are the most important steps. Now, there is no unimportant step in your asylum process, but the immigration interview, how you're going to prepare, how you will answer the questions, or at the hearing in immigration court, is extremely important, and your lawyer should prepare together with you. You should also discuss the possibility or the benefits of hiring an expert for your case, whether your case is an affirmative asylum application filed with the asylum office or if it's in immigration court. In any case, you should discuss with your lawyer whether you should bring an expert, hire an independent expert who would explain and educate the officer or the immigration judge about the country conditions in the country where you're from. And this expert could also bring examples of similar cases that are similar to your case and thereby increase significantly the chances of your asylum approval. So prepare thoroughly for your interview with your immigration lawyer and discuss whether you should hire an expert for your case and use an expert opinion report. And finally, number seven is you should participate at your interview and hearing and follow the instructions of your attorney. Again, at the interview, the process of interview is not just simple question and answer. It's a very delicate process, and your immigration lawyer, if he or she has significant experience like we do in handling immigration interviews, and asylum court hearings, they should thoroughly prepare you for this process. Do not listen to advice of somebody who is not your lawyer. Do not watch. You can watch the videos online or YouTube and search for, in the forums and so on, but do not put that before your lawyer's advice. You hire your immigration lawyer because they are going to lead you in this case. They'll hold your hand and they're supposed to help you navigate through this process. Just like similarly, if you hire a doctor to do a surgery, You're not supposed to listen to non-doctor's advice or somebody who is not a licensed medical professional on what medicine to take. Now, you can get a second opinion. It's a good idea. If you have a complicated case or if you have doubts about your immigration lawyer who's handling your asylum case, do get a second opinion. That doesn't hurt. But do not listen to those who are not licensed immigration attorneys in deciding how to prepare or how to answer the questions during your asylum interview or during your asylum court hearing. So these are the 7 steps in applying for asylum, in maximizing your chances for your asylum approval in the United States. Um, Again, I do invite you to please post your questions in the chat section, and I will answer as many questions as I can. And please also subscribe to our channel and like this video. Um, One of the questions that I frequently get is how to write your asylum story. And we have specific, so this is not as easy as it sounds. Your asylum story has to be complete. It has to have all of the information necessary to inform the asylum officer or immigration judge about the basis for your asylum, including all of the incidents that could play the role in the decision, play a role in the decision in your case. However, it should not be too long. It should not be boring. It should be concise. It should be easy to read and easy to understand. And that's an art, because your asylum declaration is the first impression that the immigration officer, the asylum officer, or immigration judge, or even the government attorney, opposing counsel in the immigration court, will have about your case. So this is the first impression. Before the officer interviews you, before the judge listens to your story or to your testimony, they will read your declaration. And from the beginning, your declaration, your asylum story, also known as story, we call it as asylum declaration. From the beginning, it has to have this concise summary to give the full idea of what your case is about. If you start writing your background and you're starting with your childhood and you go over and over through many paragraphs, and the reader still doesn't understand what the case is about, number one, they're going to lose attention. Number two, they're going to lose focus. They'll be bored. And number three, they're not even going to know what your case is about. They may not even get to the end of your case. So do not write it as a poetic, story book about something where you're building the story and you have a punchline. No, start from the most important stuff. So in our law firm, what we usually do is we start the asylum declaration by giving the instructions, complete, clear instructions to the client how to write it. They write their declaration, their story initially for us in their own words, for us to review and to comment on. And we always prefer to have one specific, concise paragraph, usually the second paragraph, where the entire case is described in 3-4 sentences. And then we go into the details of describing all the background information, how you got there, whatever happened to you, why it happened. If it's let's say if it's a political basis asylum on political opinion, then you would describe how you got involved in political opinion or what you did, and so you would go into the details. But in the beginning, you want to provide full and concise story by 2, 3, 4 sentences, so the judge or the immigration officer can look at it, read it, and as soon as they read it, they know this is a political opinion case, or this is a religious-based case, or this is a particular social group case, or whatever race, ethnic minority, and so on. So start with that. Now, the first paragraph, we usually suggest to start with a brief 2, 3 sentences of biographical information. My name is Ismail Shakhtarchinsky. I was born in Azerbaijan. I entered the United States on this date, and I'm married. I have 2 kids and wife, and I'm asking for asylum, for example. And then you would go in the next paragraph and describe, again, concisely by 3, 4 maximum sentences, what is the issue. For example, I cannot return to my country because I'm afraid that I will be imprisoned. I've been in the past physically attacked. I've been threatened. I've been targeted. I've been tortured, whatever that might have happened. Those things didn't happen to me in reality, but I'm just saying as an example. So that's how you start your asylum application. And then, end with the last sentence in that second paragraph, explaining why. All of this happened to me because I have been, I've expressed my opinion and I didn't agree to cooperate with the government officials in their, fraudulent schemes, embezzling the money from the budget, whatever that might be. Or I'm a member of opposition group and we did this and that. Or I'm a member of ethnic minority and because of that, in my country, I'm being persecuted. So whatever it is, just make sure that the reader of your declaration can know and understand your case from the beginning. So that's how I recommend to start your asylum declaration. As to how to continue it, that depends on the case. And I'm often asked, your asylum story, does it have to be 2 pages, 3 pages, 10 pages, 20 pages? There is no such a thing. There is no such a rule. Depends on the case. There are cases which are 2, 3 pages long. There are cases which are 20 pages long. And if it is 20 pages long, the more pages, the more important it is to have this concise brief story, because brief paragraph as a second paragraph of your declaration. And the reason being is it's highly unlikely that the judge or immigration asylum officer is going to go through your entire story, at least before your hearing or interview. I know it sounds strange, but many times we go to immigration courts and immigration judges are very honest and they tell us, I haven't had a chance to read the case. And they sometimes ask me, the attorney representing my client, tell me briefly about it. And then that's the best type of case where I can tell the judge a brief summary and so on. We also file a brief beforehand with the court in many cases. So, but the bottom line is, do not assume that the immigration judge or the asylum officer have you read your 20-page declaration. And if you do have that many pages, such a long story and such a long, asylum declaration, make sure you have a summary paragraph. And as I said, we usually suggest that to be the second paragraph. The next question I have is, what the asylum officer really wants to know at your asylum interview. Or, we can also say what the immigration judge wants to really know at your asylum hearing. Well, they want to know as much as they need to make the decision. So, it's slightly different, though, between immigration judge, and the asylum officer. The asylum officer has a set rules they have to check to make the decision. Immigration judges are sometimes very brief. I've had, immigration court hearings, individual hearings in immigration courts in asylum cases where the judge from the beginning said, look, I've read everything about this case. I've reviewed the documents. I'm inclined to grant asylum, and then asking the opposing counsel, the government attorney, which we can call conditionally prosecutor in immigration court, and the judge asked the prosecutor, that's my opinion as of now. Do you want to cross-examine the witness or do you want to ask questions and so on? And a lot of times the government attorney says, no, judge, I also think, or maybe they say that I have some questions. And sometimes we don't even have to have me examine the client asking the questions because the judge said that they reviewed everything. The government attorney is supposed to know everything also about the case. And they sometimes say, we're just going to ask questions, a couple of questions, to test the credibility. Or sometimes they say from the beginning that, yes, we agree that this person deserves asylum, just based on the documents, on the review of the documents, and especially country reports. And that brings me to the next point, is that you want to always have full and complete asylum application and provide as much evidence of not just what happened to you, or in the form of letters from witnesses, witness statements, or evidence in form of documents, medical records and so on, but also in form of country conditions reports. So I've had immigration judges or the government attorneys agree to asylum based on the country conditions reports. I've had actually an asylum case for an individual who went to individual hearing, and the government attorney said, I have issue with your client's credibility because once they had their asylum interview, they didn't have a lawyer, they presented themselves, and the asylum officer concluded that they were not credible enough. But the government attorney said that I had issue with your client's credibility. He may not say some of the things truthfully, but based on the country conditions report, based on the reports, from different international organizations, State Department, and so on, I agree that your client deserves asylum no matter what. So they granted asylum without even a hearing. So what I'm trying to say is that you never know what the judge or asylum officer or the government attorney in the immigration court is going to pay attention to. So try to submit as much evidence as possible, and do not underestimate the importance of the country conditions reports, of the expert's opinion report. Again, I want to remind everyone, please post your questions in the chat section. I will try to answer as many questions as possible. And please also like this video and subscribe to our channel. So, how long, and the last question I want to answer before I go into the questions in the chat section, but one of the frequently asked questions nowadays is, how long is it takes to get the asylum decision? So in the asylum office, typically the asylum cases now take years until the interview is scheduled. And then even after the interview, sometimes it takes many months or years until the decision is issued. There is still no specific timeline. In good old days, many years ago, when I started practicing law, immigration law 16 years ago, we had the rule, well, the rule is still there, but the immigration offices, the asylum offices, were able to review every asylum case within 45 days. They would schedule an interview within 45 days, and within 2 months after the application, you would have a decision. There was no mailing the decision. Almost in all of the cases, you would go physically, after 2 weeks after the interview, you pick up the decision. Then things got out of hand when the Congress limited the budget and all of the asylum cases got backlogged. The asylum officers didn't have enough time and chance to interview everyone, and everything got delayed, and there were wait times for many years until the asylum interviews were scheduled. Eventually, in 2018, the DHS decided that they're going to put a stop to filing of asylum applications just for the sake of being here for many years, and they decided that they're going to interview the newer applicants earlier while trying to clear the backlog. So they started interviewing those new applicants within several weeks of application time. However, that also did not work. So eventually, all of the cases again began falling into the backlog and waiting for years. But to this day, sometimes when we file asylum applications, randomly we get some asylum cases scheduled for interviews within several months, 6 months, 2 months, 4 months, and so on. But most of the cases, again, fall into the backlog, and there is no specific timeline or promise when those interviews will be scheduled. Now, I do want to say that generally we have cases from 2015 and 16, so about 7 to 8 years ago, that are now being scheduled for interview. But again, even there, they're not consistent. So you never know. Now, as to immigration courts, how long it takes in immigration courts, the asylum hearings, generally immigration court hearings, are also very chaotic and inconsistent. A lot depends on the judge that you have. If the judge has available calendar, if it's a new judge, they may have hearings very quickly, within 3 months, 6 months, and so on. If the judge has been on the bench for many years, it may take 3 years, 4 years until you will have your hearing. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean if it's scheduled 4 years into the future that you'll have to wait that long. A lot of times the immigration courts try to sort out and balance it out among the judges, and under the Biden administration, they hired many judges. They expanded the immigration courts, and now we have, for example, in Arlington, in Virginia, we used to have one immigration court. Now we have two immigration courts, which is Sterling and Annandale, and they hired a lot more judges for these courts. So there are many new judges which have, you know, available calendars, and sometimes we get hearings scheduled within 6 months, 1 year or so. But again, sometimes we have cases scheduled 2 years, 3 years into the future. But even in those cases, your immigration lawyer, your asylum lawyer can play around a little bit, maybe contact the judge's clerk and ask if there are any available spots for earlier hearings, or file a motion to advance if you have basis for advancing your hearings. And sometimes during the master hearing, I tell the judge, well, as long as the client wants to have his or her hearing as soon as possible, I tell the judge, if you have any openings, if there's any cancellations, that you have a window, please schedule us, we're ready to go. And that's another reason why you should have all of your entire application prepared and filed timely as early as possible, all of the evidence. Don't just file just the form and then hope to supplement down the road. If you want your case heard earlier, faster, file as much as you can as early as possible so that you can ask for earlier hearing date or for earlier interview date. Then the court and the immigration office, asylum office, they're motivated to schedule your interviews as soon as possible or your hearing as soon as possible. So this is what I wanted to discuss with you at the first part of this live stream. As I said, please do post your questions on the chat section. I will answer as much as I can. It can be general questions about the immigration laws or immigration matters, or it could be questions related to the specific case. I will do my best to provide as much information as possible. And if you do want to have an individual consultation with me, there are links in the chat section, and there will be also in the comment section at the end, where you can click and contact and schedule directly consultation in my calendar. And when you schedule these consultations, there will be payment requirement. Once the payment is done, you're able to block my calendar. I will contact you. We offer consultations over the phone or over the video conference, for example, Zoom. And once you hire our services, these consultations become free. The payments you made will be applied towards your future fees, meaning deducted from the total amount of your future fees. And again, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. So I'll go to the questions and answer as many as I can. There are not that many, so if you have any questions, please post in the chat section. Okay, so first, Timothy Wachira says, hi, sir. Yes, hi, sir. And Pella, hello, sir. Next question, why is it important to win the first time? It's a good question. I guess the question is, why is it important to win your asylum case through the asylum office rather than hoping to get it done through immigration court? Because sometimes there is this wrong advice. People say, well, just file a random asylum application with the asylum office affirmatively. Even if you don't win, you will have a second chance. You can try to get it with the judge. That's wrong strategy. Number one, whatever you file the first time is going to be stuck in your case. So if you filed something, your declaration, which didn't have specific